Hey everybody, and welcome to another RCT2 review. We're continuing our head-to-head 10 contest review series. This is round number 5 and match number 1. This is Neo Hot Springs. This was made by 5 folks, Dr. Dirt with 40%, Ziscor with 25, as well as GammaZero, inthemanual, and SensualEthiopianPolice with 5% each. So let's pick this up right here with these coasters going off of the hill. This is Melt and Freeze, going through this sort of cyberpunk-ish neon type hot springs. This is a pretty cool dueling RMC. I've seen a lot of RMCs in this contest, but always nice to see a dueling coaster since they do require that extra little bit of effort, I think. Some cool little dueling moments there. A little bit hard to see kind of where they're all going. You can kind of get a picture here if we get rid of a lot of the stuff. There's a couple of crossing sections here in the middle, and then crosses on this side as well. It's always a little bit of a shame when it's hard to follow the coaster because you always want to see the whole thing, but you know, nice look, and works well throughout this whole thing. A little bit of a challenge here with the block breaks, which will put them out of sync, but I did go ahead and reset them before the video to start. But let's back up just a minute and take a look at the macro of this park. This is actually kind of neat when you zoom out. You may notice the ice land texture here looks suspiciously similar to some Japanese kanji. And from what I understand, this actually says hot spring, which is kind of neat as a cool little macro thing to go along with the micro, and there's plenty of micro in here. This is the kind of best developed area, I think. There's a couple of sections in here. The varying levels of detail do, you know, show themselves throughout the map. A number of people said it was unfinished. I don't think I would call it that. Maybe unpolished, perhaps, but it is a nice map, even if it is on maybe the smaller side. But let's zoom in here. I think our little hyper zoom is going to help us. Lots of little signage pieces. I love this kind of snow and ice on the ground. And this, you know, typical kind of Asian cyberpunk-ish type design. So lots of interesting architecture. All those kind of metal and pipes and kind of junky looking stuff combined with the more bright colors and the neon and everything. I love these boats. I think these boats are really cool, especially with the floating inner tube type things underneath of them to make it kind of look like they're bobbing up and down in the water a little bit. Cool signage as well, using those kind of LED type panels, and it's neat to see the coaster sort of skirt its way in and out through all these various tunnels and parts and pieces. Spinning around to this side, we've got this pretty cool pink and red like pagoda looking building here with the credits only on the way in, but kind of a neat design, and it stands out around the rest of the map. I do wish there was a lot more of this kind of thing because it is a pretty cool, very distinctive look as well. These buildings are neat with the pipes coming down from underneath of them, kind of with the icy texture kind of sitting on top of the whole thing to get that whole look, and also to spell out the words and everything. You can kind of get this sort of hint at these little plazas and everything that are created up top with the giant stacks here that come up through the whole thing. You get a little glimpse of the station here, love the flashing lights, and just this little kind of, you know, you get your little pre-lift RMC that is pretty typical of them, and this is kind of a neat little design here to start out the ride. We can also catch the transporter suspended monorail here. I figure the suspended monorail is kind of the quintessential futuristic looking thing. I think it debuted in the Future World scenario, if I remember right. So it, I don't know, it always feels like that's the right move for something like this. Noting the coaster going through the waterfall here, which sounds a little chilly perhaps, but we can pick up the rest of the coaster on this side. But let's look at this one here, which is the Street Gang Motor Race. I think this might be the first moto coaster that we've seen this contest, which I always like seeing these. And actually, this is a nice layout to me. It's a fairly realistic layout, fairly safe layout, but I like the ones that just have a nice flow to it, and this one has a nice flow to it. So big win for me as far as that one goes. Here we can see part of the backside of that RMC that we looked at earlier. As I zoom out just a little bit, you get these pretty nice size rolls here that wrap around this whole motorbike coaster station and this pretty towering building here as well. So nice little bit of interaction for that. We get these cool terraced walkways. I really like this kind of green ironwork metal going on here. I think that's pretty neat. Cool too, as we see them go through. One's an inland and one's a dive loop. Always like that on dueling coasters, where you get the one doing the one thing and the other doing the other thing. But I do like this section. The walkways are pretty neat, and I love the design of that whole thing. We've got some subs under here, just called subs, but you don't really see these utilized terribly often, so I always do like to see these guys in a map. Just I'm always a big fan of weird rides that aren't seen terribly often, so you know, that's always kind of a bit of a win for me. Speaking of not terribly often, we've got the this custom old custom ride, covered alpine bob ride, which is never my favorite. It always looked a little wonky. It's just kind of the Enterprise twisted up a little bit, but actually used pretty well here, I think, and blends in better than I kind of expected it was going to. So props to them for doing that. Got a little drop tower here called Firework, just sticking up above the springs. We turn here a little bit, we can see an elevator too, and this little cut through between the kind of larger pieces of the map. Looks like there's a little bit of space for cutaway if you really want to get into it, but I think the intention is to not use it and to be able to just kind of see the little details kind of going off in the distance. So here's another good little area here. I think these roof pieces are either Wacky Worlds or Time Twisters, so it's a good use of making the admittedly terribly ugly expansion pack scenery look okay in some of these things. I think these little pieces, like gas tank looking filtration tanks, are also part of that as well. So nice use of incorporating that kind of thing in a way that looks all right. Here's some really nice detail too. I love this shop down here with the kind of lighter colored pavement, I guess. I'm not sure if that's meant to be lights casting a shadow down, which I think it might be actually like a reflection down to the ground, but I like the look of that in general, and I think this kind of aesthetic is really where this park does the best, I think. But as we continue, we get to this side of the map, which becomes a little bit repetitive, but I do like the structure, and I like how it kind of hugs the building on the whole side. We're going to pick up this coaster here called Crane. It's a vertical drop coaster. A couple of different parts and pieces to it. You can see the second half here. It actually has 2 hold brakes and 2 vertical drops, which, you know, nothing wrong with that. I think it's always kind of neat to see a coaster that in real life is relatively formulaic, and in, you know, our RCT world it doesn't have to be. So there's some kind of neat bits and pieces here: diagonal lift, vertical drop, big Immelman. So kind of starts formulaic, but then it has some interesting second half here where it comes out of this building, goes up, and then we've got this like little kind of dip and brake section here before a nice vertical drop with the curve through that little walkway down through this whole rapids and section here, and then up and into the station. So I do like that. It's kind of neat. And also this little tree here skirting in there, because we really don't have a whole lot of landscaping plant wise. There were some topiaries earlier up there if you caught that, but otherwise no plants, so it's kind of a neat almost shrine, I would guess. This is a cool restaurant, presumably on top of this building. You can see all the different floors and everything. A little plain inside, but I like this escalator that goes up between the 2 buildings, and then all these kind of flashy bits and pieces, the flashing signage, all the different neon parts and pieces, and also the stalls down here. You know, it's one of those things too where the actual food stalls from the game don't need to be hidden to be useful. Like, you can actually do some pretty decent stuff, and actually all of these here are parts from the original game stalls that just have some facades over top of them, and I think that's a good way to do it, in my opinion. You can really make a lot out of that. Got some canoes scattering in and out of the water down here. And then we also have this rotodrop tower here in the middle. I like the way it comes up alongside this tall building here, which this is a good way to make buildings like this that could tend to be repetitive, less repetitive, so different windows are lit up, and different parts and pieces. Like this thing's got an AC unit right here, and lots of little things to break up the structure a little bit, so you have those layers, but you don't have it as repetitive as it might be otherwise. And of course, our nice little suspended monorail going through here too. I think the differences in the walkways are pretty neat too. Like we've got this kind of wood nicely lined with the molding, and then the icicles hanging off of it up top here. Cool supports on that, and then we had the more kind of industrial metal grate stuff down below. We have the green side that we looked at earlier. Lots of just variation, which I think is kind of neat, and it makes it feel more kind of haphazard and pieced together like you would kind of expect from a theme of this nature. So that's always kind of a nice touch, in my opinion. So that rounds our tour of this little map. It's actually a very nicely put together thing. It's a little varying in terms of overall quality, and there's definitely some lacking in polish in some spots, but I think it came together pretty well. Would love to see this more fully fleshed out because it's a pretty cool idea, and I think the overall aesthetic is quite nice. Neo Hot Springs actually did take the victory over Ghirardelli's Dream by think like 2 votes. It was a super close match. Both well-deserving parks, but in the end, the Soda Jerks pulled it out and punched their ticket to the finals, and unfortunately sent the Hurricanes off, and they will not go to the finals, unfortunately. So, shame for them, but they did a great job with 5 very good parks throughout the season. So if you want to download Neo Hot Springs, I'll post a link to download this in the description of this video, as well as open RCT2, which you will need since this uses the new track pieces. So check that out for sure. We will be back next with match number 2 of round number 5 as we wrap up our round robin series reviews, and then we get into the semifinals and finals. So until next time, thank you all very much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.